Honestly, it took me 2 days to finish Little Women. If I were born in the 1950s, this might have been my feminist manifesto. But today, not so much. It's kind of the same old theme of, don't tell me how to live my life. We're lucky. We had generations of brave women kick the doors open for us. Let's be real. Jo March is iconic. She's loud, brilliant, refuses to be boxed in, and gave a whole generation of girls permission to say no thanks to corsets, conventions, and copy-paste expectations. But somewhere along the way, we turned Jo into the one-size-fits-all poster girl for feminism. And that is not it. Feminism isn't a personality. It's not about being loud, rebellious, or single. It's about choice, autonomy, respect. And if you think Meg, Beth, or Amy are somehow less feminist just because they didn't metaphorically set their lives on fire, keep watching. Welcome to Real Talk, where we spill the tea on movies and all the madness in between, with wit, sass, and zero sugarcoating. Little Women is semi-autobiographical. Louisa May Alcott based it loosely on her own family and childhood, especially her relationship with her 3 sisters. Jo March is essentially Louisa's stand-in, the independent, stubborn, aspiring writer who wants more from life than marriage and babies. The story follows the lives of the 4 March sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, as they navigate adolescence and adulthood in 19th century New England. It's about love, loss, family, ambition, and growth, told through everyday moments and personal choices. Before we dive into the feminism, here's the setup. Little Women has had its fair share of glow-ups, but we're talking the 2019 version here. Directed by Greta Gerwig, it takes Louisa May Alcott's beloved classic and flips the structure, adds emotional gut punches, and gives Jo March a little more bite, and a lot more nuance. Yes, the 1994 version with Winona Ryder is a warm blanket, faithful, heartfelt, and peak cozy core. But the 2019 version? It's layered, bold, and meta. It plays with timelines, gives Jo a publishing arc that echoes Alcott's real-life battles, and redefines happy ending on its own terms. This one isn't just a period piece. It's a conversation about women, about choice, about who gets to write the ending. It dives into the complexities of family, gender roles, ambition, and the tug-of-war between idealism and survival. And look, I'm all for feminism. I'm grateful to the women who came before me and fought so we can vote, work, speak, and own our own damn bank accounts. But feminism isn't a club with a dress code. It's the belief that women should have the same rights, respect, and freedom as men, to speak, to choose, to live. Whether that means starting a revolution or just quietly living the life you want, on your terms. So no, you don't need to reject love, wear boots, or write manifestos to be feminist. It's about one thing, choice. And that's where Little Women actually hits, if you're willing to look past the Jo worship. Everyone is obsessed with Jo. And sure, she's great, smart, independent, passionate, allergic to the patriarchy. Jo feels like every girl who ever wanted more. She's fire, rebellion, and creativity. But all the sisters deserve respect. They each hold their own version of feminism, and that deserves just as much airtime. We love Jo because she pushes back. She writes, she questions things, she rages against expectations. But that doesn't make her more feminist. It just makes her louder. And what the movie, especially the 2019 version, tries to show, maybe a little too subtly, is that all 4 sisters are fighting their own battles. They're all carving out space in a world that gives women very little room. And here's the irony. Yes, Jo's independence was revolutionary, but even she compromised. Louisa May Alcott wanted Jo to stay single, but the readers and the publishers wanted a happy ending. So Jo marries Professor Bear, not the rich boy next door, not the guy Aunt March preferred, but someone she chose. Let's talk about Meg, the homemaker who chose herself. Cue the judgmental side eyes. Meg chose marriage and motherhood. Scandalous. But here's the thing, she chose it. In the novel, Meg was the beauty of the bunch. She's portrayed as the one with elegance, poised, and basically Aunt March's idea of marriage market perfection. She could have married up, she had suitors, she had options. And yeah, she was tempted. But she didn't sell herself for comfort or status. She didn't marry for money. She married for love, on her own terms. She walked into domestic life eyes wide open, knowing it wouldn't be easy. And when things got hard, she learned. She adapted. She grew. That's her quiet kind of strength. Meg's story reminds us, feminism isn't one size fits all. It's not career woman or bust. It's the freedom to pick your path, even if that path includes diapers, grocery bills, and a man who gets on your nerves every other Tuesday. Being a feminist doesn't mean saying no to family. It means saying yes to what lights you up. Meg's feminism is quiet, soft-spoken, and covered in flour. And that counts. Because power doesn't always wear pants. Sometimes it rocks an apron and says, "I'm happy right here." Beth is the quiet feminist no one talks about. She doesn't yell. She doesn't write. She doesn't rebel. And still, her gentleness is her power. In a world that demanded women be useful or loud, Beth dared to simply be. Her presence was calm, grounding, and deeply needed. We forget that kindness is resistance too. Beth didn't need a revolution. She was the revolution, wrapped in warmth and selflessness. And sometimes, that's what changes people most. Now, Amy, the ambitious one who refused to apologize. Let's give Amy her flowers. She was smart, strategic, and brutally honest. "I want to marry rich," she said. And she meant it. Not because she was shallow, but because she understood the power of security in a world that gave women none. And to be honest, what's wrong with wanting to marry rich as long as you didn't steal him from someone? Early Amy? A little vain? A lot petty? Yes, she did that thing, but she actually grows. From brat to boss, from nose in the air to feet on the ground, and she secures her family's future while staying true to herself. Amy is pragmatic. She knows the world she lives in, and she plays it smart. Amy made her ambition known and didn't blush about it. She chose love and lifestyle, and guess what? She got both. That's not vanity, that's vision. And let's be real, Amy grew up in Joe's shadow. She always had to fight to be taken seriously. Remember, we're told to pick one lane, be the rebel or be the pretty achiever. But heaven forbid you be both. So why do Joe fans and Amy fans clash so hard? Let's start with the burning manuscript. Joe stans see this as the ultimate betrayal. I mean, burning someone's book? That's sacred. Was it awful? Yes. Unforgivable? Maybe? If she were 25? But Amy was 12. She was still in her mean girl training arc, not a fully cooked villain. Joe fans act like she did it with malice and a matchstick manifesto. But this wasn't sabotage. It was sibling rage with Shakespearean flair. And guess what? She paid for it. The story doesn't let her off the hook. It uses that moment to mark the beginning of her emotional growth. That was Amy's turning point, not her villain origin story. Then comes the Lori dilemma. Let's be honest. Lori and Joe would have combusted. On paper, he's a catch. Rich grandfather. European education, killer cheekbones. He's witty, cultured, talented, and emotionally available, at first. He bonds with the March girls like he's part of the family. He worships Joe for her fire, her brain, her boldness. For a hot minute, he's the dream, the sensitive rich boy who gets you. But scratch the surface. And Lori is also immature and emotionally entitled. When Joe turns him down, he spirals, hard. He sulks in Europe, parties too much, and acts like Joe owes him for loving her. And when he proposes to Amy, it feels like a rebound, until Amy checks him hard and says, "Don't marry me unless you love me for real." Amy doesn't swoon. She sets boundaries. She challenges him. And to Lori's credit, he listens. He grows up. He earns her. But let's not rewrite history. He wasn't born husband goals. He got there the hard way. Meanwhile, Joe didn't want romance. She was headstrong, fiercely independent, allergic to being anyone's girl. Lori fell in love with the idea of Joe. Wild, brilliant, not like other girls Joe. But he never really saw who she was becoming. That's why she tells him, "I can't love you the way you want me to." And that's not cold. It's honest. She refused to shrink herself into someone else's fantasy. If she'd married Laurie, she would have lost herself, resented him, written 0 novels and cried into her ink pot. And Laurie? He would have spent their marriage wondering why the fire he loved was now burning him alive. So here's my take. Amy was a brat when she burned the script, but she grew. She didn't steal Laurie, he chose her, and Joe had moved on. They both have flaws, they both have strengths. And we, as modern viewers, don't have to pick sides. You can admire Joe's boldness and Amy's ambition. You can want Joe's freedom and Amy's strategy. That's feminism, room for all the ways to be a woman, without rankings, without shame. Now, let's talk Joe's ending. Some critics hated that she winds up running a boys' school. No romance with Laurie? Check. But not even a co-ed classroom? Boo. In the 19th century, a woman running any school, especially one with boys, was a radical act. It wasn't regressive. It was revolutionary, in a corset. Yes, Alcott may have still been challenging norms, even if it looks a little backwards now. Could Joe have opened a school for girls? In a better world, sure. But in that world, just putting a woman in charge of education was like dropping a feminist mic on society. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And she did it in petticoats. Yes, Alcott originally wanted Joe to stay single, but the publisher said, "Cool, but where's the husband?" So Gerwig's ending, where Joe negotiates her book deal, is more than creative license. It's a mic drop moment, a feminist wink. Joe didn't need a wedding ring. She needed a publisher. She didn't want to embroider. She wanted to write books and yell about injustice. And so she compromised, just like Louisa did, because even feminists make deals with the world. We need to stop treating Joe like the only right answer. Amy isn't the villain. Meg isn't a sellout. Beth isn't irrelevant. They're all just women trying to figure it out, in a time that gave them crumbs and called it cake. So here's your reminder. You don't have to be Joe to be feminist. You don't have to write novels or rage against marriage. You don't have to reject romance, run a school, or marry rich. You just have to be free to choose. Because feminism at its core isn't about rebellion. It's about options. And in that sense, Little Women gives us something quietly radical. A world where each woman writes her own story, even if that story ends with love, marriage, or a comfy domestic life. Feminism at your own pace, in your own shoes, with your own damn plotline.